This video contains audio description. The content is presented by Yetnebash Nugusi Mola, UNICEF Disability Specialist. Photographs of children with disabilities from around the world. Disability Inclusion Training. Module 5, Removing Barriers and Providing Support. Maria, 21, from Bulgaria.
As I'm a university student, the most fresh example of a program in the service that has been helpful was the university faculty where I'm at. They chose to give me the extra time for examinations or even provide lecture recordings in case I needed some additional time with note-taking.
All of our lives are made better by the products, services, and infrastructures that surround us. Just look around you. What products or services have you used this week that made things easier for you? It could be your smartphone or public transport, the street lights that help you cross the road safely, or your visit to a doctor for a regular checkup. Persons with disabilities need all these products and services, and persons with disabilities have the same rights as everyone does to access basic services like healthcare, education, and public transport. But in order for persons with disabilities to really be able to use these products and services, we need to make sure they are inclusive and accessible. To do that, we have to identify and remove barriers to services, and we have to make sure persons with disabilities have access to additional support when required. To start, we have to understand how people with different types of disabilities see our services. And for that, we have to ask persons with disabilities directly. Are there any obstacles that prevent you from benefiting from these services?
Iman, 19, from Jordan.
Sometimes I wouldn't go to class because there was no ramp for me to use to enter the classroom with the wheelchair. I would have to get up from my wheelchair to get into the classroom.
We often think of accessibility in terms of physical things like ramps for wheelchairs. But people with different disabilities face different kinds of barriers. And sometimes what people need is more accessible communication or information, including in online spaces.
Mark, 24, from Uganda, speaks in Ugandan Sign Language.
When I use a smartphone, the TalkBack feature provides me with the feedback and information that I need.
The truth is, if we built products, facilities, and services that can be used by all people, our world would be a better place for everyone. This approach is called universal design. For example, if we made sure that all buildings have ramps, this would make life easier for people who use wheelchairs and also for pregnant women, mothers with children, older adults, and even people traveling with carts or suitcases. In this way, accessibility benefits everyone.
Marcelina, 23, from Samoa, speaks in Samoan Sign Language.
Captions on television are very helpful and important when you don't understand the language being spoken or the sign language being signed on screen. And this benefits everyone. Not only the deaf, but also those who are hard of hearing, the elderly, and even foreigners.
Many owners of public places and services are simply not aware of the need for accessibility, are unwilling to work on accessibility measures, or think they are too expensive. However, there are lower-cost solutions available. For example, building an accessible venue from the very beginning is cheaper and easier than trying to change an inaccessible venue later.
I definitely need accessible buildings with little to no staircases. And to solve that issue, maybe we could have either portable elevators or ramps to move through multi-story buildings.
Brian, 30, from Peru.
For education to be more accessible to people with Down syndrome, the reading materials should be easy to read and understand. The teacher should explain things slowly and using simple terms.
But even if all barriers in the environment are removed, many persons with disabilities still require support and assistive devices to participate in daily life. For example, even if a local government office has an accessible building and provides information in accessible formats, a person who is blind might still require a screen reader and training on how to use it. Individual types of support are specific to different disabilities, like hearing aids, screen readers, or communication devices. It could also be something like peer counseling, a personal assistant, or an inclusive playground to encourage children with and without disabilities to socialize together.
I work with other persons with disabilities to support and encourage them. I try to empower them to have confidence and to make sure they are able to make their own decisions.
Because of COVID, we have a lot of online meetings now. In these meetings, sometimes there is screen captioning available, which I always prefer because I can read for myself all the deliberations of the meeting.
Unfortunately, disability support services are often underfunded and unaffordable to persons with disabilities, especially in humanitarian emergencies. Most often, support for persons with disabilities is provided by family members, and they need to be empowered with information and training. You can help by learning what local support services are available so that you can link persons with disabilities and their families to these services. In all cases, it's important to understand what specific support a person with a disability requires so you can help them find it. But also remember that at the end of the day, it's important that persons with disabilities themselves have choice and control over the support that they receive. We've talked about different ways we can make our facilities and services more accessible, how we can provide tailored support for persons with disabilities. But ensuring accessibility and providing assistive technologies does not yet mean that you achieve inclusion. To be inclusive, attitudes are the key. The thing is, people's attitudes can also be a barrier. If you're blind, then the tools that make reading easier won't help you if the teacher is not willing to use them, or if the teacher believes that children who are blind don't need education. So, we have to work with people. We have to make sure that families of persons with disabilities, teachers, those that respond to emergencies, doctors, community workers, and other service providers all have access to information, training, and support to ensure that persons with disabilities can access the same services that everyone does.
Zacharias Zekai, Light for the World, Mozambique.
When the cyclone Ida hit Beira, we as Light for the World, as an organization based here in Beira, we started supporting persons with disability. There was a situation where food were coming to the accommodation center and they were throwing food in the air and people were fighting to get the food. And you can imagine a person with a wheelchair, you can imagine a person with a hearing impairment who is not going to get the information if this time of food distribution or not. So we need also to work with the DPOs to make sure that the DPOs know where the people are.
You may be wondering what you can do to make the world more accessible and inclusive for persons with disabilities. The good news is that you can start by taking action in your own life or workplace. If you're a service provider, you can start by asking persons with disabilities what barriers they face and how you can make your services more accessible to them. You can fight for accessibility and inclusion policies at your workplace and advocate for a budget to start taking action on inclusion. You can learn about local disability services so that they can help you make your workplace more accessible, or so that you can connect persons with disabilities to them. And talk to persons with disabilities and their families to make sure they are getting the right support, or arrange an informal support through family members. You can empower families with the information that they need about their rights, opportunities for support, rehabilitation, where to get assistive devices, or how to apply for benefits or personal assistance. Now you have a better idea of what an inclusive world looks like. You can be the one to make it a reality.
UNICEF, for every child, with technical support from CBM Global Disability Inclusion, with thanks to NORAD, Norwegian Agency for Development Cooperation. Video production by Highway Child.